All right, Shalom. First and foremost, want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rachak, Kodash. Double honors to apostles of Great Millstone and salutations to the elect, which go to be. Now, it's your brother Hawaii from GMS Chicago. Got a quick little lesson for you Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, Puerto Ricans, and confusion of faces who bloodline go back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who are Israelites whose spirit bear witness that they are child of the Heavenly Father. In the name of the Heavenly Father is Yahweh, who the world English calls Jehovah God. In the name of the Heavenly Son is Yahweh Shai, who the world English calls Jesus Christ, or Jesus Christos, or Yeshua, Yeshaya, Yahweh. And pretty much, this is going into how the Gentiles that's written in the New Testament is talking about Israelite foreigners. You know what I'm saying? The word foreign means to be estranged. You know what I'm saying? To be a stranger of. You know what I'm saying? You know, and uh, 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 even before we came into the truth, you know what I'm saying, we was once Gentiles, man. You know what I'm saying? We was foreign from our own heritage, man. You know what I'm saying? And we followed the way of another that wasn't actually ours, which is the American dream, or the standard lifestyle of growing up, um, finishing school, getting a job, find Miss Perfect, having some kids, growing old, making sure they do the same thing that you did and stuff, and grow old together and all that stuff, and pass away, And I want to start off with that's what we thought, you know what I'm saying? So I want to start off with Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15. It says, "But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee." You know what I'm saying? So we was enticed with other doctrines, enticed with other things outside what we already had. You know what I'm saying? Our heritage. You know what I'm saying? Like it says in James, the first chapter. You know what I'm saying? Uh this is James chapter 1, 14. Okay. Starting at 13, it says, "Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of the Most High. For the Most High cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempted he any man." It says, verse 14, "But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death." In verse 16, "Do not err, my beloved brethren." You know what I'm saying? So we was enticed with other things, other philosophies. You know what I'm saying? More it's also a good chance that the same thing that happened to King Solomon happened to us Jakes, man. You know what I'm saying? You know that we went started dealing with the heathen and stuff, and started following their doctrines. You know what I'm saying? And it does forth causing us to become Gentiles, man. Because we wasn't no longer following the law, statute, commandments, our own heritage, but enticed with some other things that we started trying to apply. You know, um, you know, and uh this is one of the curses. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 37. It says, "And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whether Yahweh shall lead thee." You know what I'm saying? Byword and the proverb, meaning that we was gonna get called outside our original names. You know what I'm saying? And part of this curse is that we're gonna go along with it, man. You know, because well, of course, you know what I'm saying? Because what are the certain bywords? Negro, African American, Afro American, Latino, Latina, black nigga, colored, tree nigga, Indian, savage, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Wet back, slick back, you know, Mexican, Puerto Rican and stuff, porch monkey and stuff. You know what I'm saying? We was gonna receive those names. You know what I'm saying? You know, and all this time You know what I'm saying? When you was calling yourself black, Mexican, Puerto Rican, even the ones who call themselves Native American or Semio Indian and stuff. You know what I'm saying? What ways have you followed? The ways of of this world, man. You know what I'm saying? Which is not of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. So therefore, if you a Gentile, you know what I'm saying? Even when I was in the world and stuff, you know what I'm saying? Until I converted, I was a Gentile. You know what I'm saying? I was away from my commonwealth, man. You know, this is this is Daniel's chapter 9, verse 8. It says, "O Lord, to us belongeth confusion of face, to our kings, to our princes, and to our fathers, because we have sinned against thee," because we ain't know who we were. You know what I'm saying? You know, till this day, there's still certain Israelites who don't even know that they Israelites, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, so we was confused about who we were, man. You know, and that's what it was in the time of Acts, man. When the Apostle Paul in the book of Romans, when he said that he was a apostle to the Gentiles. You know what I'm saying? When Romans 9 clearly tells you who he was talking to, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, that's like somebody coming from Israel who know who they are, who is a Pharisee and stuff. You know what I'm saying? And they coming to the Americas. You know, they coming to America and they making voyages to tell if you live in Chicago, he's going to the Chicagoans telling them, hey, you ain't Chicagoan, you actually are Israelite from such and such tribe. You know what I'm saying? Going to California, New York. You know what I'm saying? Going to Trinidad, going to Mexico, New Mexico, you know what I'm saying, Central America and stuff, and letting them know who they are. That's what Apostle Paul was doing when he was making those voyages to Rome. You know what I'm saying? Because those people was calling themselves Roman and was following the Roman customs. You know what I'm saying? In Thessalonica, you know what I'm saying? You know, they was calling themselves Thessalonians. You know what I'm saying? Uh, 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 and Colossians, you know what I'm saying, which is believe it's Greece, and then Corinthians, which was Greece, and then the Galatians, you know what I'm saying, you know, hey, these was people calling themselves after they own land, you know what I'm saying? But at the same, from where they was at, but at the same time was following underneath another doctrine. So that's therefore they was estranged from their actual heritage and following something strange, which actually wasn't theirs. You know what I'm saying? Was picking up on that curse of Deuteronomy 28 and 37. You know what I'm saying? You know, because if you don't know who you are, you gonna follow whatever what ways that you think you are, man. You know. This is Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 4. It says, "And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thy heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thy enemies in the land which thou knowest not. For ye have kindled a fire in my anger, which shall burn forever." You know, and it's, you know, another precept further going to the Deuteronomy 28 and 37, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, and the Lord had told Jeremiah that thou even thyself shalt discontinue from that heritage. But Jeremiah knew who he was when the Lord was telling him this. You know what I'm saying? He knew that he was a Levite. He knew that he was from the tribe of Israel. I mean, from the for the nation, from the nation of Israel. You know what I'm saying? He knew who he was. So that means in the reincarnation, there was going to be a time where he was going to be underneath the Deuteronomy 28 and 37, where he was not going to know who he is, but yet he was going to be woken up. Meaning there's going to be a time that Jeremiah was going to be a Gentile, estranged from his heritage, following the ways of another instead of his own, and then be woken up to be known that he's a Israelite, man. You know what I'm saying? Being converted, meaning you coming out of that Gentile state of mind, man. You know, because the Lord is not dealing with the heathens. How in the world would the Lord be dealing with the heathens and they got a chance to of salvation and stuff, but yeah, we gonna have them in slavery? No, that's not gonna happen. You know, when the Lord said in Romans 11, no, it's like when Apostle Paul said in Romans 11 and 26 that all Israel shall be saved, all Israel is gonna be saved. You know what I'm saying? You know, 2/3 of our people are gonna get saved in the most The brutal way. They got to get destroyed, and then they got to come through the elect line and have ever lasting shame and contempt. But they still gonna be underneath the second covenant. You know what I'm saying? They still gonna be perfect, having the laws with laws written in them. You know what I'm saying? They still gonna have that brand new body. They still gonna be able to not go off. You know what I'm saying? And even them too, they gonna have slaves. You know what I'm saying? So it's a difference. You got to understand the difference and to be able to discern what's going on in the text when it comes down to the word Gentile, man. You know what I'm saying? I'll read it again. This is Jeremiah 17:4. It says that, and thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thy heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thy enemies in the land which thou knowest not. For ye have kindled a fire in my anger, which shall burn forever. And that was being enticed with the other ways, man, being disobedient, not following the ways of Yahweh Shem Shah. You know what I'm saying? So the Lord cursed us, put us on punishment. You know what I'm saying? I know curse is a harsh word and stuff, but pretty much the Lord put us on punishment, but he made sure that we felt the punishment, man. You know what I'm saying? This is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 64. It says, and Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. You know what I'm saying? So scattered to the four corners of the earth. You know what I'm saying? So then Apostle Paul, then he had to make voyages from this land to that land to that land. That's why you have the book of Romans. That's why you have That's why you have the book of Romans, First, Second Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians. That was the Israelites that was in Ephesus. You know what I'm saying? The Philippians and Philip. You know what I'm saying? Colossians, Thessalonians. You know what I'm saying? That's why you had those, because you had Israelites that were scattered to these lands. That Apostle Paul was making journeys to let them know that, hey, you not what you think you are. You an Israelite. You know what I'm saying? Waking them out of that estrangeness, following the ways of another instead of their own. You know what I'm saying? And that's what's happening even till today. Like in the book of Acts, the second chapter, when all those people with different languages and stuff, and they was receiving the word through through the apostles. You know what I'm saying? After Matthias took the spot of Judas Iscariot. You know what I'm saying? Uh, um, those people was waking up and they was converting, man. You know what I'm saying? They was coming back to who they actually are. You know what I'm saying? Because they thought that they was something else, man. You know. And it says and there thou shalt serve other gods which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. So that means that we was going to follow another way that was entirely outside of what we supposed to worship. Going on to dumb idols. Dumb idols meaning the word dumb meaning that they can't speak. You know what I'm saying? Something that's not alive. This is Ephesians chapter 2, verse 11. It says, wherefore remember that ye being in time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands. Verse 12, that at that time ye were without Hamashiach Yahushai, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel. And what's the commonwealth? The law, statutes, commandments. Because when you read in Deuteronomy the 4th chapter, starting at verse 5, I can grab it. It's Deuteronomy 4 and 5. It says, behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as Yahweh my power commanded me, that ye should do so in the land whither ye go to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. Verse 7, it says, for what nation is there so great, who have the Most High so nigh unto them, as the Lord our power is in all things that we call upon him for? And what nation is there so great that have statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law which I set before you this day? You know what I'm saying? So that was our commonwealth because we had some. What is uh uh the scriptures talk about how the wisdom is more precious than fine gold. That's precious, more precious than rubies. You know what I'm saying? Any jewel out here and stuff. You know what I'm saying? This was our wealth, man. You know what I'm saying? This is our law, statutes, commandments. Yeah. Since we was being aliens and stuff, you know what I'm saying, following the ways of the world and stuff, then that means we was in a Gentile mind frame, man. You know, and in a commonwealth, it shows a separation, man. You know, because when you know who you are and stuff, you know what I'm saying, and you know that you for the Most High and stuff, then that lets you know there's a difference when it comes down to those Gentiles. Because if the Lord only gave the law, statutes, commandments to Israel, then that means that there was a Gentile going into Helen and Hellenistic, which means a Greek speaking Jew or Israelite, Israelite that speaking do Jewish customs. You know what I'm saying? And an Israelite who just who don't know they a Jew, man. You know. It says and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without the Most High in the world. You know what I'm saying? You know, because they ain't no then because when you in the world, you don't know anything about Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. You know that false doctrine that comes with Jesus Christ, which goes back to Serapis Christus. You know what I'm saying? Edomite, man. You know what I'm saying? A real Gentile. Somebody who's strange and always was strange. Who will never come back to because it's not theirs. Who can't convert, you know? Who can't convert because conversion is not for them. They can't come back to something that is theirs. I mean, that isn't theirs, you know? And when we was in the world, we was following, you know, just being a nigga, you know what I'm saying? Smoking weed, you know what I'm saying? Doing the things that was contrary to the doctrine, being led on by these harlot houses that they call churches that's on every single corner, you know what I'm saying? Being tempted with Satan's devices and stuff, you know what I'm saying? You know, we was we was being aliens from our commonwealth, man. You know what I'm saying? Our wealth, our wheels, man. You know what I'm saying? Which is the law, statutes, commandments. You know, the ways of an Israelite. You know, this is 1 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 2. It says, "Ye know that ye were Gentiles, carried away onto these dumb idols, even as ye were led." You know what I'm saying? And that goes back to that Deuteronomy 20:64 that we was gonna serve gods, even wood and stone, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, cause wood, it can't speak. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these statues are made out of wood and stone. You know what I'm saying? You know, like I believe it was in uh, 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 the land of Ephes. You know what I'm saying? When they was worshiping Diana, which was a false god. You know what I'm saying? Where which was made out of either silver or gold, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, can't speak. You know what I'm saying? Was created by the ones that they trying to worship, like it tells you that in Wisdom of Solomon, the 13th chapter. You know what I'm saying? How you'll how a person will bring how Jake will carve out a piece of wood and fashion it in a certain way and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Put it in a stand, make sure that it don't fall over and stuff. Give it like a little shrine or a special spot and stuff, and then next you know start worshiping, man. You know what I'm saying? You know. So that means we was carried away onto dumb idols, man. You know what I'm saying? Things that wasn't real. It wasn't the living power. It was the dead power. You know, and there's a lot of dead powers out here, man. You know what I'm saying? That people are deeming as if they living, man. You know what I'm saying? And heathens think that way, man. You know, so when us sliding up on the heathens ways and stuff, you know what I'm saying? We too was believing that we could just create something out of our own hands and then worship it and we gonna receive benefits, man. That's part of that curse, you know. You know, this is First Maccabees because you also got some that will keep you in that Gentile mind frame because they're getting paid for it. This is First Maccabees chapter 1 verse 11. It says, "In those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many." You know what I'm saying? And what's an example of that? These pastors in these churches. You know what I'm saying? That's underneath a 501c3 charter. You know what I'm saying? Where they license to teach you only certain things to give you that smooth stuff, but not the whole 100% truth. You know what I'm saying? Who's trying to just give you the sweet and not the bitter. You know what I'm saying? Who's putting you in a false balance, man. You know what I'm saying? Who's teaching you to only seek for who's teaching you to seek mercy in the wrong way, man. You know what I'm saying? To not fear the Lord. You know what I'm saying? To not do what as he says. You know what I'm saying? You know, to the best of your ability, man. You know? It says saying, "Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow." You know what I'm saying? And scriptures talk about the punishment when it comes down to someone who turn away the righteous from his ways to make him go back, because that's blood on your hands. You know what I'm saying? You know, you causing him to go back into being a Gentile. All the men that was in the truth and then fell out, they going back to a Gentile. You know what I'm saying? Because then what do? They start eventually down the line, you know, they hold on to Israel for a certain period of time, and then next thing you know, they call themselves African American again. You know what I'm saying? They smoking weed again. They doing the things that they was doing before they even got converted. So they went back into that Gentile mind frame, man. They starting to be estranged once again from the Commonwealth, which is the law, statute, commandments, man, from Yahweh Shem Yahushua. You know, started believing that it is that his name started to believe that his name is Jesus Christ, which is not, it's Yahweh Shai. You know, started believing that the Heavenly Father's name is Jehovah, when it's not, it's Yahweh, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, going back into that state, you know, and you got some that keep Jake in this dead mind frame, man. You know, and these pastors that's in league with Esau Edom, so-called white man, you know, the devil, what the Bible speaks of, you know what I'm saying, which means who's the deceiving, man. You know, it says verse 12, it says, "So this device pleased them well, then certain of the people were so served forward herein, that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen." You know, so when you taking on somebody else's ways instead of your own, you going, that's what Gentile, that you a Gentile. You know what I'm saying? You know, it says verse 15, it says, "And made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief." You know what I'm saying? And that's exactly what's going on in these churches, man. You know what I'm saying? Oh, the Lord loves everybody. False doctrine. You know what I'm saying? You know, uh, 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 that the Lord doesn't hate. You know what I'm saying? You know, that anybody can make it. You know, that you know, all these that 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 the mark of the beast is Christianity or embargo and not the chip, which it really is the chip, man. You know what I'm saying? The mark of the beast is the RFID chip, which is radio frequency identification, and underneath the name of NFC Verichip, which is near field communications, which uses RFID technology. When you in a Gentile, when you being when it comes down to being a Hellenist, you're gonna follow the ways of what the world, man. You're gonna follow what Esau Edom puts out, because like it says in Joel 9:24, the earth is given to the hands of the wicked. You know, so all his vibrations and everything that he allows and pushes underneath his rulership and stuff when it comes down to the Israelites and stuff, the ones that's following it, the 2/3 that's following it, you know what I'm saying? You know, or the ones that ain't wake up yet and stuff, guess what? They'll be considered Gentiles, man. You know, because they're estranged from their knowledge. They're estranged from who they actually are. You know what I'm saying? You know, this is this is Second Maccabees chapter 4, starting at verse 7. It says, "But after the death of Seleucus, when Antiochus, called Epiphanes, which was an Edomite," it says, it says took to the kingdom. It says, Jason, the brother of Onias, labored underhand to be high priest. It says, promising unto the king by intercession 303 three score talents of silver, and of another revenue 80 talents. Yeah, verse 9 says, besides this, he promised to assign 150 more, if he might have license to set him up a place for exercise, and for the training up of youth in the fashions of the heathen, and to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochians. And that's exactly what happened to Jake even till today. You know what I'm saying? When it came down to the slave trade, you know, when they was grabbing up the Taino Indians, which are the Puerto Ricans, which are the tribe of Ephraim, really originally, you know what I'm saying? Taking them and going over to Spain with the Israelites in the Northern Kingdom, you know what I'm saying? And then bringing over Judah, so-called Negro and stuff, over to the Americas and stuff, man. You know what I'm saying? And trading them back and forth through the Atlantic slave trade, man. You know what I'm saying? And so like, you know, and beating like if you ever seen the movie I think it's Toby, you know what I'm saying, and no, Kuta Kinte and stuff, whatever movie that was, where he was being beaten out of his name to accept another name. You know what I'm saying? He was being forced being to be a Gentile. You know what I'm saying? So then, uh, uh, he knows his heritage, and then his son knows a little bit of his heritage, and then his grandson knows just a little bit of the heritage and stuff. But then he's also being indoctrinated with the new way of life, the Western life, the way of America. You know what I'm saying? And then when it comes down to the and then he get popped off, and he just falls in the ways of America. Now he's teaching his son, you know, which is the great grandson. You know what I'm saying? Now his great grandson. All he knows is the ways of the Western hemisphere. All he knows is the ways of America. Calling himself a Chicagoan, calling himself a, a New Yorkian. You know what I'm saying? A Yorkie or whatever they call himself. Uh, uh, or repping Atlanta, you know what I'm saying, or repping from New Mexico or Mexico, you know what I'm saying, calling yourself after the name and stuff, you know what I'm saying, claiming it to be your citizenship, man, you know what I'm saying, and that's what happened to Jake, man, you know. That's why when you fill out a job application, they ask you what's your ethnicity and stuff, and all that stuff is wrong because the Native Americans, they're not Indians. The word Indian goes back to savage, which means a beast. You know what I'm saying? You know, we're not beasts, you know. Well, we're above beasts, man. We're given dominion over the earth, like it says in Genesis, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, uh, 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 that you're not Mexican. You know what I'm saying? That you from the tribe of Issachar. You know what I'm saying? That you're not a Negro. You from the tribe of Judah. You know what I'm saying? You know. So with us calling ourselves by these other names came comes with customs of this world, man. You know what I'm saying? Just like what happened in this Maccabees, man. You know, and when you was growing up, what ended up happening? You was in the church. You know what I'm saying? You was growing up in the church, believing on Christianity, man. You know what I'm saying? Furthering your strangeness from the true doctrine, and furthering your relationship with Yahweh Shem outside. Verse 10, it says, which when the king had granted, and he had gotten into his hand the rule, he forthwith brought his own nation to Greekish fashions. You know what I'm saying? You know? So his own nation that was Israelites, including himself, you know what I'm saying? He got paid off, you know what I'm saying, to cause and create the nation of Israel to become Hellenists, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, to leave off from their own ways and put on the ways that was not theirs. You know what I'm saying? That was going to entice them to sin, you know, because the ways of the heathen is sin, you know. It says, verse 11, it says, in the royal privileges granted a special favor to the Jews by the means of John, the father of Eupolymius. It says, who went ambassador to Rome for enmity and aid, and that word enmity means friendship. It says he took away and put down the governments which were. It says he took away and putting down the governments which were according to the law. He brought up new customs against the law. You know what I'm saying? Being aliens from your heritage, they was teaching them how to do so, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, and that's exactly if you ever seen a movie called Bear, man, it's something. This is it's about Gad, where it goes on the lines like bury my heart, yeah, bury my heart in wounded knee with Sitting Bull and I think Red Cloud. You know what I'm saying? You know, going into Gad, they in the beginning of the movie you had this father. You know what I'm saying? And he had his son, and his son was just stronghold on being a Gadite. You know what I'm saying? But not following the ways of the Israelite customs, but thinking he was a full fledged Indian and stuff. But they had broke his father. You know what I'm saying? His father was putting on boots and clothes with buttons and stuff, and his son looking at his father like, you strange, man. You know what you are. And his father was trying to get him to become a Gentile, man. You know what I'm saying? In that sense, even though calling yourself an Indian and Sweeks, and you know what I'm saying, and then Blackfoot and Cherokee and Katota or Katata, Salakia, you know, but calling yourself that and stuff, you wasn't really following the ways of you wasn't following the ways of Yahweh Shem Shai. You know what I'm saying? So you was estranged then. But the point that I'm making was that he knew that his heritage was of the Indian customs, the so-called Indian customs. You know what I'm saying? But his father wanted to follow the ways of the Americans. You know what I'm saying? You know, meaning that he became a Gentile. You know what I'm saying? Because of the ways that he was following, it wasn't his own, it wasn't his original. And that's what happened to us Israelites. It says verse 12, it says, for he built gladly a place of exercise under the tower itself, and brought the chief young men under his subjection, and made them wear a hat. And that's the reason why Esau Edom, he always goes for the children, always talking about the children, because when they grow up indoctrinated with one thing, that's all you know. You know what I'm saying? You know, if nobody teaches you to take a shit in the toilet, you gonna keep shitting in your pants because that's all you know. You know what I'm saying? You know. So pretty much the truth is like knowing and understanding that when you got to use the washroom, you got to go to the bath. You got to go to the washroom, and if you got a number two or number one, you know what I'm saying, that it needs to go into that toilet. You know, but that's coming back to because the scriptures teach you wisdom. You know what I'm saying? The unwise thing would to just keep walking and just letting it all out in your pants, man. You know what I'm saying? And in a certain sense like that. And they go after the kids because then the kids grow up and this is all they know. You know what I'm saying? You know. Verse 13, it says, now such was the height of Greek fashions and increase of heathenish manners. So they was following ways that wasn't theirs. They was following the heathens ways. You know what I'm saying? If you got this comes from Alistair Crowley, a third degree Mason. You know what I'm saying? A 33-degree Mason. You know what I'm saying? A Edomite who puts in you got that the main thing that these churches push is do as thou wilt, man. That's a heathen custom because the Lord clearly shows that you can't do what you want to. You know what I'm saying? Because you're going to be enticed. And when you get enticed, it's going to bring forth sin. And when sin comes about, then death, man. You know what I'm saying? They teach you how to further be away from Yahweh Shem Yahshua, not get closer, not know who you are. They don't want you to know who you are because then that means it's a downfall in their kingdom. You know what I'm saying? So they trying to keep you in a Gentile mind frame, a Gentile mindset at all times, man. But they can't do it because this is according to prophecy that the elect are going to come out and come out of that, come out and convert, man. Meaning going from a Gentile to an Israelite, knowing who they are, even though they've been Israelites all this time, but now they'll know who they are. You know, it says, it says in verse 13 again, it says, now such was the height of Greek fashions and increase of the heathenish manners through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly, ungodly wretch. It says, and no high priest. Hey, the scripture says in Hosea 4:6 that my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, man. You know what I'm saying? Being a Gentile, you're being destroyed because of the lack of knowledge. You don't know who you are. You for your enemy. You know, if you calling yourself a African American, Mexican, Puerto Rican, so on and so forth and stuff, you're for the enemy because the enemy taught you the ways of himself, man. You know what I'm saying? Instead of letting you know who you actually are, man. You know what I'm saying? So he's conquered you, but there's some that was able to break those shackles, man, those chains, those spiritual bonds on your in your spirit, man. You know what I'm saying? When you recognize who the enemy is, how are they the enemy? You know what I'm saying? And with the given proof that they are in the enemy, you no longer underneath that Stockholm syndrome where you for your oppressor, where you love your oppressor. You know what I'm saying? Now you know who he is. You know what I'm saying? You know, and that's what Apostle Paul was doing. He was freeing those shackles, those chains off the Israelites' mind to let them know that they was actually Israelites and not what they was calling themselves, Thessalonians, Galatians, Colossians. You know what I'm saying? Romans and stuff, man. You know. It says, verse 14, it says that the priests had no courage to serve any more at the altar, but despising the temple and neglecting the sacrifices, hastened to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise after the game of discus called them forth. So pretty much, you know, it says, verse 15, it says, not setting by the honors of their fathers, but liking the glory of the Grecians best of all. You know what I'm saying? So pretty much they was falling, they fell away from their heritage, you know what I'm saying? And then every time a new generation came up, what ended up happening? They was following the ways of the heathens, you know what I'm saying? Thinking it was their personal way, like it was their own way. You know what I'm saying? You know. In verse 16, it says, by reason whereof sore calamity came upon them, for they had them to be their enemies and avengers, whose customs they followed so earnestly, and unto whom they desired to be like in all things. It says, for it is not a light thing to do wickedly against the laws of the Most High, but the time following shall declare these things. Like and that's exactly what's going on. We underneath that curse. You know what I'm saying? That we don't know who we are, except for the ones that do know who they are. You know what I'm saying? Still trying to break those chains on you Jakes out there who think that y'all Negro, Latino, and Native American and Puerto Rican, man. You know what I'm saying? Especially you confusion face Israelites. Because if you look like a Edomite, and that's part of the punishment that the Lord had placed and bestowed upon you. You know what I'm saying? Then guess what? You're more than likely gonna think you Caucasian, man. You're not gonna realize the difference between you. You know what I'm saying? You might get a couple of glimpses here and there and stuff. You know what I'm saying? But you ain't finna make anything of it. You're not gonna really acknowledge the spiritual difference between you and an actual Edomite, even though you all look the same, man. You know. So how much more are those gonna be a Gentile, a Israelite foreigner, man? You know, in the mind, man. And I hope this video was edifying, and I like to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Racha, Kodash. Double honors to apostles, great millstone, and salutations to your elect, which we hope to be. Shalom and a Abba.